David Calvert,
What's up, buddy?
it's great to see you without a mask. And the beard is trimmed up, hair's come down. You and I both are in the midst of, well, coffee. I started to raise my cup and I'm like, oh, green screen, it's not working. Cheers to you, my friend. Good to see you.
You too, buddy.
Origins of ace ball in the biggest little city. I mean, this conversation, this could be more than the time frame that we're allotted, clearly.
Yes. We both have some history with the club. I've been there since the groundbreaking, really.
Yeah. Day one. I mean, like more than like you were there BG before groundbreaking.
Yeah. I the first interaction I had with the ball club was with it would have been Stewart Katzoff, one of the co-owners at the time, at the ballpark. We did a quick photo for a New York Times real estate story, Stewart being a New York guy. And then after that, I was there the day they named the club. We were over at what was then the Sienna, now Renaissance, in one of the ballrooms, and they unveiled the jerseys for the first time. And it feels like yesterday, and like it's been 20 years.
I know. And I mean, the pandemic started in March, like 8 years ago. So,
yeah,
time
is a construct. I mean, with baseball, theoretically, you could like hit all day. So there's nothing to stop you. So, yeah.
Okay, so to go back real quick, I alluded to the fact that it's good to see you without a mask. And the last time that you and I saw each other was at the stadium during the soccer season of now the former team of Reno 1868 FC. You and I both masked up. And, you're all the way down on the field. I'm up in the press box. I mean, our paths would cross real quick when I would show up for work. You're already there. Your gear is out. When reeling it back real quick to almost a year ago when all of this started to happen and started to take shape with the pandemic and are we going to play and suddenly no baseball. Excuse me. How did you find yourself pivoting at that moment?
I mean, like a lot of people didn't know what to expect. But one of the things that's nice about the type of photography that I do and the type of photographer that I am, I knew that I was still going to have news assignments because this is, the biggest news story of my lifetime, of many lifetimes. So I was kind of pivoting away from sports and thinking about like, what are the other stories that I can tell in the community? It was the first month was a lot of time at home, but looking for ways to get out and document the, the closure and the health crisis. And then, as we moved into the summer, the political aspect of it at the legislature and the election and things like that. So I kind of replaced baseball with news and breaking news. And I've always done news photography. That's my background as a photojournalist. So, I've been busier than I thought I would be because it's been a newsier year than I expected it to be. I mean, I was down in Carson City last week for the protests at the legislature and the Capitol down there, while simultaneously there were, riots and seditious activity at the Capitol.
Yeah.
In DC.
So now, excuse me, looking back at one of my favorite photos that I have of you, and I think I sent it to you. It was not saying that you aren't, but it was a young David Calvert with long hair, a backward baseball cap, and all sorts of camera gear on your shoulder, and a jerseyless Archie. Then inside the costume, our friend Bart.
Yes. Yeah, the original Archie, if people don't remember, was naked, as most as most mascots are, as they came into the world, the Sasquatch of the Sierra. And gosh, I would have been, I don't know, mid-20s when Aces started. And I had long hair at the time. I was in the middle of a Locks for Love grow out. dedicated to my former high school journalism teacher who had passed away from cancer recently, the guy who got me into photography and sports photography, and a big influence in my life. And it appears that I may be growing that same sort of flow back. One of the things that is interesting, and I don't know where this happened, but when I grew out my hair the first time, it was like kind of long and mostly straight. And now it's not even wavy, like it's curly in the back there. So I'm not getting quite the length that I thought I would have, but definitely the volume. I kind of look, when I put a baseball cap on, I kind of look like the mid-90s Mark McGuire with the like curls in the back.
Oh, fantastic.
Which is a look. For a while, I had to shave my beard, and so it was just the mustache. And I looked very much like a middle reliever from like 1982 AA baseball. Could have pitched for the Silver Sox at Moana Stadium.
Oh man.
You know, yeah, it's there's been a lot of looks, a lot of pandemic looks.
And speaking of looks, I mean, you've been in the clubhouse, you've been right there, you know, every single like time, and you've seen the stadium from different perspectives and different angles, clearly than others who may have been there either as much as you, as little as you, or as less as you, should I say, when it comes to attendance. What would be your and it's tough to narrow it down. I was going to say, what would be your top 5 favorite professional players you've seen in the stadium go on to their career with another team?
Yeah, wow.
Or even with the Diamondbacks, for that matter.
You know, it's interesting because a lot of times my favorite players are not the ones who go on to like big league success, or, you know, it's guys that might be at the end of their career and then sort of kick around the minors a few more years, or guys on the way up who have a, you know, or would be considered organizational guys. Some people that stand out that I got along with, I really liked Mike Jacobs. Mike was just kind of like what you would expect from a veteran. He was a little bit gritty, definitely like respected by the younger guys, probably because of his ability to swear. But, you know, it's the kind of thing that he had a clubhouse presence that was cool. He also had kids, which was kind of a cool thing to see, like how they were brought into the ballpark, and like, you know, what his wife was like, and seeing him as sort of a family guy was cool. Let's see. You've got the mural behind you, so there's a pretty good example. I got along well with Shipley.
Yeah.
And I really liked gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Hang on.
Cody Ransom?
Cody was great. Mike Freeman. Gosh, I was staring at a picture. Yeah, Mike Freeman and I got along really well. He was a good dude, and it was good to see him have professional success, because he was definitely an organizational guy. Mm-hmm. That wasn't someone that the Diamondbacks thought was going to be a big leaguer, and he went on to be a big leaguer, and is still in the big leagues. So that's a cool thing.
Is he with Atlanta right now?
He is with Cleveland, I believe, isn't he?
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see.
Do you know if the home run that Willie Mo Payne hit in 2011 has ever touched down?
That was a big one. You know, we've had a lot of big power hitters because it's the PCL and we play at elevation, and, you know, it's one of those things where you can look for those sort of 4A corner infield sluggers. That's been kind of a staple of the Diamondbacks minor league philosophy with our team. So it's not just Willie Mo Payne, but you've got Peter O'Brien, Jacobs, as I mentioned. Brandon Allen was a big home run hitter. Keila Kiowahi. I'm not going to try that again.
I always thought Peter O'Brien had probably one of the most fluid swings especially when crushing a home run, one of the most fluid swings of any player. Reminded me of, if I can draw the comparison, reminded me of Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah, I mean, his swing was really fluid. A great natural arc to it. Especially if it was a fastball, he was going to hit it, and he was going to hit far. And that's been one of the things that sort of has plagued him at other levels, was his ability to hit off-speed pitches. But fastballs aren't a problem for him. And watching him take batting practice is a special kind of privilege that I have at the ballpark, because I can get there early and I can hang out and I can make pictures around the cage. He was an incredible hitter. And he was a guy who was going through some stuff while he was in AAA. Like, was he going to develop into the prospect that the pedigree was there for, or was he going to struggle at the next level a little bit? And that's one of those things where it's kind of cool to see the guys at AAA, because they're on this cusp of achieving this dream. And so many Aces players end up playing at some level in the major leagues, but whether or not they're going to be good, great, have a long career, what it's going to turn into, is kind of unknown. And Peter was one of those guys who I think Aces fans would have expected or hoped for a little bit more out of him. But he's also been able to make a living as a professional ball player for his life, and he's seen the world and played in Mexico, and he's had a cool career still.
I remember when he got the call to go up in 16, and I was in Louisville, Kentucky for a radio convention, and a bunch of us were all gathered in the bar, and they happened to have the game up on the TV. And someone, they kind of like in the middle of conversation, they tap me, they go, "Hey, don't you work for the AAA for the Diamondbacks?" I go, "Yeah." And I look up and I went, "OB's at the plate." And sure enough, he crushed a home run over the left field wall in that appearance. And I'm like celebrating. Everybody's looking at me like, "What are you all excited about?" I'm like, Reno, he played in Reno, and never mind. You're not going to understand.
No, and that's one of the cool things about AAA baseball, is being able to see the guys at the next level. I'm a Twitter user, and one of my favorite things to tweet about is when former Aces are doing something, whether they sign a new contract or they get a coaching job, or there's just something interesting in the news with them, because you have this connection to them. Mm-hmm. You saw them at a point in their career when other people weren't paying attention. It's kind of like discovering a band before they go mainstream or make it big. Like, you can be like, yeah, I like their early work. It's the same thing with the ball players. You get invested in them when they're young, and you want to see them succeed as they move along, and you take pride in kind of knowing that they spend some time in Reno, and they appreciate the town the same way that you do.
I think a couple of the notable players, there are a player and obviously a manager who come to mind. You've got Trevor Bauer and his success with the Cleveland Indians, and now with the Cincinnati Reds, unless he's no longer with the Reds. And I lost track.
Bauer's pending free agency is an interesting factor. Bauer was an interesting guy when he made it to Reno. He was always he was a heralded prospect coming out of UCLA, and he had kind of his quirky pregame routines, and he's sort of famous for his long toss routine before games, which is just not traditionally the way that you see pitchers warm up. Is people who followed his major league career knows, like, he's a smart guy, and he's paying attention to analytics, and some analytics like spin rate that most baseball fans don't even understand how to measure, because it uses the high-speed technology, and it's not something that we were, when you're a little leaguer, you're not talking about spin rate, you're not talking about launch angle, you're not talking about the grip that you get on the ball. But Bauer was always someone who was paying attention to that stuff, and it's he's the primary reason we probably won that AAA national championship. He came up big in the championship game, but he also came along at the end of the season and pitched well. And he was part of a group of guys that year that all sort of landed in Reno at the right time. The Diamondbacks developed not just Bauer, but they had Skaggs and Corbin and Aaron Blair, and shortly behind him, Archie Bradley. That was an incredible run of major league pitchers that all came through Reno. And if we're talking about like the most famous Aces with the big league careers, it's going to be Bauer. He won a Cy Young Award. he's probably gonna collect some more hardware as he goes along. But there's other guys too. Didi Gregorius had his awesome run in New York, and it'd be nice to see him continue his career. Adam Eaton with his World Series run with the Nationals, and then just recently signing again with the White Sox. There's been guys, Corbin, Robbie Ray, and that doesn't even include the guys who come through on rehab assignments that we get to see.
Even for like 20 seconds worth of rehab assignments, and if it's, like a Buster Posey, who not necessarily rehab, but, right as he got the call to go up, same with Mike Trout. I mean, we see these players and they come in and like when the day that Lincecum was was on the mound and we had that record attendance in the building and that day game was just electric.
Yeah, the Lincecum game was the same day as a Washoe County Education Kids Day. Mm-hmm. So half the ballpark was filled with screaming middle school kids. Yep. And they take off around the 5th inning because they got to get back to school and get home and all that stuff. But it's crazy to have this electric atmosphere at like 11 o'clock, and the kids aren't paying attention to who's on the mound. They're just going crazy because someone told them to yell. Yep. But then at the same time, like you've got all these Giants fans that are like, I'm skipping work today. I'm gonna take a long lunch and come down to the ballpark. And those 11 o'clock baseball games, the businessman special, the school days are some of the coolest times to be at the ballpark. For me, I like seeing the ballpark at different times of day, at different times of the season. The Lincecum game was definitely a cool one.
I don't know about you, but for me, at times, like there are really emotional times when the stadium has cleared out. Like, say for instance, the game 2 years ago when we came back after being down 9 runs in the bottom of the 9th inning, and that 4 o'clock game was not only incredible, but it was just like the energy of once it was done and as people are clearing out. And I remember the combination of adrenaline and endorphins like starting to slowly come down after all of that. I'm like, wow. I mean, it was draining. And by the time we left the stadium that night, it was only 7:30, 7:45. And I'm like, I could almost go to bed right now. Like it was that emotional.
Yeah. I mean, you start to think about what the players go through for a full season and like kind of the ups and downs of it and how difficult it would be to like show up the next day after something like that and just start over again. And you really get an appreciation for it. There's nothing quite like a walk-off. Certainly the coolest thing that you can photograph at the ballpark. And, I definitely like showing the emotion of the game as opposed to just the game itself. It's fine to have, game action, batter, pitcher with a ball leaving his hand, play in the field, like all that stuff's part of the game. It's cool. It's why we're there. But the emotion surrounding it and kind of the people and what they're going through. And you really capture that when there's, an end of game, walk off, whether you're on the winning side or the losing side. Like some of my most memorable nights at the ballpark are games where, guys had a bad game or there was a loss or something didn't go the way they expected it. And you just kind of see them in the dugout afterwards because they're not quite ready to walk into the clubhouse or, they're taking that extra moment to just like, all right, I got to reset and do it again the next day.
Processing all of that is most definitely a big deal. You, excuse me, let's go back to real quick, the beginning, if we can, in how did you become the team photographer, and did you have to like outdo like how many competitors, or was it just, hey, this is the guy you need and that was that?
Yeah, so it started with that assignment with so it was a New York Times assignment for with Stewart Katzoff. I met him at the ballpark while the stadium was being built, like literally before they had even hired anyone. So there wasn't a marketing director. We may have had a president of operations at that point, but and I told Stewart at the time, like, hey, I want to be the photographer and I'm going to make really cool pictures of you. And they're going to go in your hometown newspaper, which also happens to be, one of the largest papers in the world. And I made cool pictures of Stewart, and he liked them. I brought a baseball bat with me that day so he could like stand with a baseball bat on his shoulder in the like what would be the dugout in the future. The story goes that his mom really liked the photos, and they framed one of the editions of the paper and had it hung in their office in New York. Which probably helped my case in the long run to know that like the owner's mom was like, yeah, David's a good photographer. But then I did everything I could to be in front of people who were going to be making that decision. It's not all that different than wanting to work for any client. Like you want to introduce yourself, and you want to network, and you want to let them know that you have something that can help them tell their story. So I went to it was probably like a PRSA or Ad Club or one of those networking organizations where Brett McGinnis, the first marketing manager of the Reno Aces, was giving a speech. And afterwards I went up to him and I like waited in the line of people who wanted to hand him business cards. It was probably the coolest moment Brett's ever felt. All these people trying to get some business out of him basically. And I was just like, hey, I'm David. I photographed Stewart a couple months ago. He mentioned that I should be in touch with you. Here's my business card. I'd love to, work with the club when the season starts. And then, it probably came down to my pictures at some point. Like they had to look at a portfolio. But back then I hadn't photographed a lot of baseball, because we didn't have baseball in Reno.
Right.
I'd photographed some Diamondbacks games when I was at the Arizona Republic and a little bit of Nevada baseball. But mostly I was just a kid who grew up playing baseball, and I knew it was, my favorite sport to watch and the favorite ballpark to be at, and that I wanted to be a part of it, and I wanted to document that piece of Reno history. And that's really how I look at it is, I started as a photographer, as a high school yearbook photographer. So I kind of approach what I do at the ballpark as like a yearbook photographer. Like I am documenting the season, start to finish as best I can to create sort of the historical record of Aces baseball and this part of the Reno story.
When you were selected and, now all of a sudden the ball is rolling, and even, we'll kind of jump around on this, but in the 2012 campaign, when it was full speed ahead, and here we go into the playoffs and the electricity is buzzing, did you get to go to the national championship?
No. So I have only photographed maybe one or two road games in this whole run. I photographed a clinching game down in Sacramento, I think in the 13 season, it might have been the 12 season, 14, somewhere in there. It was in the Bugsy years. No, it was in the Nevin years. Let's start that over. Not as relevant. So yeah, no, I don't typically travel with the club. I've only photographed a couple of road games in Sacramento. So that's one of the things is I'm watching the games as a fan when they're on the road as well. We've had great broadcasts with Ryan Radke, so it's always fun to listen to the road games because I didn't get to listen to them when they were at home. And I'm looking forward to the same with Zach Bayruti. It's one of the kind of staples of the Aces baseball is that we've always had a really good broadcast team. But yeah, I wasn't. I was not on the road for those games.
Interesting, because I've only seen the Aces play out of town once. It was in Sacramento. I would love to, it's bittersweet to say this, but now that there's more than likely the opportunity to go down to Vegas or up to Tacoma, even over to Salt Lake, wherever to go see some of these opposing games, because and the bittersweet part comes now that there's no soccer, which is unfortunate because without Reno 1868 FC, that allows, the luxury of being able to travel more. I will definitely miss working those matches because it was generally the out of town, like when Aces go on the road, I'm like, oh, cool. I can go to, wherever. I can travel up to Seattle and go then down to Tacoma. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, we have a soccer match that weekend. I'm like, and I'm not going to Tacoma. And that's how it is. So for you, have you seen any online, any of the photos of any other stadiums that you would like to see the Aces play and possibly go photograph there?
Yeah, I definitely want to go to Salt Lake. Salt Lake has a beautiful backdrop. You've got the snow-covered mountains in center field. And it looks like a cool place to watch a game. Uh, Tacoma is also on that list. One of the historic PCL cities. Um, I'll probably catch a game in Vegas at some point. It's a beautiful stadium. I was down there for work just before it opened a couple years ago, and my hotel room was like looking out over it at Red Rock Casino, and you're
Oh
kind of
wow.
seeing the stadium, and it's a cool setup that they have down there. And so I definitely want to take a look at that. Um, yeah, it's one of those things where you spend so much time at the ballpark in Reno that it's hard to go catch a game somewhere else. I've noticed as much as I focus on AAA baseball, I've actually spent less time watching Major League Baseball. Like I kind of wait until the AAA season's over, and then it's like, oh yeah, playoffs, cool. Like how are my Mariners doing? Oh, they still suck. That's awesome.
And that's, I think, one of the things too about traveling to a different stadium. So say for instance in Nashville, I saw a Sounds game before they went to their new stadium, so I would like to go back to Nashville and go see their new stadium out there.
Yeah. I look forward to, like you mentioned, those Aces weekends that used to be kind of taken up by soccer, and I'm gonna miss soccer. Soccer was my second favorite sport to photograph. It's probably the game that I watch the most on TV. I watch a lot of English Premier League soccer and a little bit of MLS. But I am gonna appreciate those kind of off weekends again, and being able to travel a little bit more and to just pay attention to the Aces in a different way. It's hard to catch the game when you're at the soccer match, or it's hard to catch a major league game to see what the Diamondbacks are up to when you're working those other games as well.
Absolutely. This, like I said, I mean, this conversation, we could go on forever about different players, development, managers. Oh, that's what I was going to touch on when I mentioned a player and a manager. When you said watching people go to the next level, who knew that Phil Nevin? I mean, obviously, he wasn't done with baseball after leaving Reno, but getting a job in San Francisco with the Giants, and then going across the country to go be the third base manager for the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, all of our managers have been top-notch baseball guys. Bugsy went on and did some coaching with the Marlins after he left us.
Yeah.
And then obviously, he had such a long and incredible major league career. And then Nevin, his time, he's really flourished with the Yankees. It seems like New York is like the right environment for him.
Yeah.
Nev is he knows how to handle the media market there well, and he's in that position where as a third base coach, like you kind of get to be the cool coach.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have to deal with as much, but he'll get a story written about him every once in a while because he goes off at an umpire, and certainly something we saw a lot of in Reno. Phil is he's a passionate guy. And then same thing with Chris Crone. Crone's an incredible manager.
Yes, he is.
His ability, especially with the younger guys, and his relationship with the organization. He has been and will continue to be a lifelong baseball guy. Whether that's managing at the AAA level or you being a bench coach somewhere in the major leagues, he's just going to be around baseball, and obviously he comes from that a baseball family. Like he's got his two boys who have made major league appearances, and I also think one of the things that's been kind of cool about Reno, and you mentioned this when I was talking about the players that I liked in the past, it's a lot of the ones who also went on to baseball careers and kind of stuck around with the game. So Mike Jacobs went on to continue coaching. A guy like Blake Lawley, who has had success in the Diamondbacks organization, coaching at Double A last year, and he's somebody who he could be a major league manager someday, and that's something you saw in Reno, like kind of right away. Let's see, Andy Tracy had some coaching pedigree. Robbie Hammock is a guy who was with the Diamondbacks and the Aces for a very short amount of time, but went on to continue managing. There's it's cool to see those guys who are making that transition in their career when they're no longer like, I'm trying to make it to the big leagues. They're just there to like learn from the other managers, the other coaches, to kind of shift their focus to being less about their career and more about like how they can develop as a baseball lifer, as a coach, and help other people.
With opening day, fingers crossed, around the corner in April for this year, what and now with the nets, the protective nets going all the way down both sides of the field, that will that change your perspective, your view for how you shoot your photographs?
Yeah, so I'll definitely have to photograph through the net, but that's also something that I was doing around the home plate area. We've extended the nets um, in the past, so it's we moved them over the top of the dugout. I'm thrilled to see the nets go up. Just I've been to enough games where I've seen too many people take a foul ball.
Yeah.
And I am so used to looking through the net that it doesn't affect the way that I enjoy the game. I just have to be a little bit more aware of where I'm standing and how close I am to the net, and making sure that I'm able to blur that out so that we don't see it in the photos. But so we're going to see it in some of the photos. If you look at pictures from like the NPB in Japan, they have netting around the stadium in a lot of their fields, and there's a little bit of a net, kind of a residual haze in some of the photography, because the shooting positions, the photography positions are behind those nets. But I still have access, to the dugout, and I can still make the pictures that I want to make from the field. And one of the cool things about our stadium is really that the fact that you can walk around it. We've got that full concourse. There's all kinds of cool photo angles and different positions. And it's my favorite part about being at the ballpark, is looking for new angles. And I'm still finding spots that I like more than others, 11 years in, 12 years in.
What I don't want to pull back the curtain too much, but I think my last question on this is there an angle and or a location anywhere in the stadium that you've yet to capture a photograph or a set of photographs?
I could do more work in the bullpen and of the bullpen. That's just a spot in the ballpark that's kind of hard to get to during a game. And I've never really experimented too much with that. And then more time in the clubhouse is always better. Being able to pull back the curtain a little bit and show sort of what the players are like. And that always comes down to, who's the clubhouse leaders, what's their sort of philosophy, how do you get along well with them? What are they, what are their moods like on a given week? My secret is, when I want to get clubhouse photos, I always go in during rain delays, because it's like the most loose atmosphere, and they're not paying attention in the same way that they are like pregame and postgame. So a lot of the photos that you see from inside the clubhouse come from those rain delays that we've had over the years. As far as, the other kind of positions, our ballpark's great because we've got that big area behind home plate with the Diamond Club seating. And so it allows you to make some really great pictures of the pitcher and some interesting angles of the batters, and kind of the guys in the on deck circles. One of my favorite photos to make. It's kind of one of those feature photos that isn't a game action photo. And it's also like the best spot to watch the ball game from. So I spend a decent amount of time there. If you've watched an Aces broadcast, you've seen me standing behind home plate talking with the season ticket holders. Probably talk a little bit more than I photograph, but it's a long season. You got to pace yourself.
Absolutely. That's actually one of my favorite areas too, especially, when I'm offered the luxury of wearing the hot dog costume. And, I think that's, you always crack up whenever I'm in it, because like you say, there's nothing more minor league baseball than this costume right here.
Yeah. The hot dog costume is great. And that's like, I think about some of my favorite photos from the ballpark and some of my favorite memories. And like, there's the baseball stuff. There's, getting to see Mike Trout and watching Trevor Bauer. But there's also like kind of the goofiness of minor league baseball. And, you know, we had the famous chicken came in that first year. The San Diego chicken was here at the ballpark, and Whiplash.
Don't forget the monkey that rode the dog too.
Yeah, Whiplash, the cowboy monkey, the capuchin monkey runs around. So like we've done some of the classic minor league sort of, you know, get the fan out gimmicks, but we've also had some just kind of weird stuff that happens. There was a guy who threw out a first pitch the first year in 2009 dressed as Hulk Hogan, which will be one of my favorite photos of all time.
Austin.
Yeah, he's a guy I went to high school with. I'll leave his name off the podcast just for his family's sake. But like, I think one year we had the Captain Morgan like pirate come out because there was a sponsorship with our alcohol vendor.
Amazing.
You know, so first pitches are goofy. There's a Santa Claus throwing out a first pitch. And then obviously things like Star Wars Night and Harry Potter and just anything that kind of adds to the environment, takes away from the simplicity of the game and throws in sort of these like the carnival barker stuff that is really a big part of minor league baseball. And I can be as grumpy as everybody else and just be like, yeah, I just want to watch the baseball game. But like, honestly, I make cooler pictures when there's a bunch of people having a weird time at the ballpark. And, you know, whatever it takes to get them out to the field, you know, come enjoy a game at Greater Nevada.
It's definitely the entertainment aspect. And I think, you know, when, you know, it's costume time or goofy time or whatever, I mean, yeah, you are like, when we're on the field and I'm not gonna lie, like when I'm, you know, in a script read or doing something else, and then, you know, I see you slowly moving in with peripherals. And when the camera comes up, I intentionally try to ham it up for the camera, you know, just to like, if it's going to be for, you know, a memory's sake, or if it's for, you know, archive's sake or whatever. It's about enjoying yourself and having a good time while you're there. And, you know, there are people who don't get to see all of the games that we do, and they don't get to be a part of all the action. So I want to like turn it on for those people who, when they see these moments, are like, man, I really need to go to Star Wars Night, or I need to see that guy in the hot dog costume. Because, you know, when kids are there and they're seeing stuff for the first time, and, you know, if they think like this is how it's always going to be and they hang on to that memory, then they grow up with that and they tell, you know, it just goes down the generations.
Yeah. And you saw it recently, like, you know, the NFL did a playoff broadcast on Nickelodeon. Like, yeah, you want to see that in person, go to a minor league baseball game. Like, you know, we haven't slimed anybody in a couple of years, but like, you know, we've done some goofy stuff, from, you know, the Dizzy Bat Race, which is like the simplest but like most crowd pleasing thing you can do. The Frozen T-shirt contest, where the guys have to like unroll the Frozen T-shirt. Like, get a couple of drunk UNR frat guys down there trying to do that on a Thursday night, and that is classic entertainment. Like, absolutely nothing better. Trike races, the kids building, you know, whether it's a hamburger or a taco or a hot dog or any of that stuff, you know, and then the players will interact with it and they'll kind of like steal a piece of it. And it's just, that stuff is, one, it makes for great photos, because I like those kind of feature photos as well, and just that stuff being set in the ballpark. But it's one of the cool things about minor league baseball and minor league sports.
There is so much fun to be had at the stadium. I mean, honestly, like, I've tried to convey this in any of these opportunities that I've had to be a part of these broadcasts, that it's like, it is about the excitement. It's the electricity. It's the experience. It's the fun of it all. And really, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, we can sit here and go on for days about all of it, or we can just, you know, look, just come to the stadium and see what we see. Because like, you're going to see photographs, you're going to see stuff on social media, but it's not until you're actually there, like, wow, this is actually happening.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, as soon as we're allowed to have fans and it's safe to be out at the ballpark, like, there's no better place to spend a summer night in Reno than Greater Nevada Field. You know, we got those great sunsets. Get yourself a bratwurst, drink a beer, beverage of choice, and hang out. You know, my favorite thing about photographing baseball, and why people ask me about this all the time, will be, you know, it's, for me, it's you're outside for 4 hours. It kind of feels like going fishing sometimes. Like there's just this, you're enjoying the atmosphere and you don't really care if you catch a fish. And sometimes you don't really care if they win. Like you just want to go through the experience of being outside and doing something. And I can't wait to get back to baseball. I miss in-person sports as much as anybody. You know, it's not the same watching a major league game on TV, and it's not the same when you're watching a game without fans. And you know, everyone wants to get past this and get healthy and get to a point where we can enjoy a ball game.
Absolutely. David, I know your time is valuable and I don't want to take any more of it, but I can't say thank you enough. I really, really do, fingers crossed. I know I keep doing this, but I really look forward to seeing you on opening day this year. 2021, it is still slated for April. You know, as we'll just have to wait and see what time will tell. But yeah, I really do look forward to seeing you back at the ballpark. And hopefully both of us like this will not have masks on and we'll be able to laugh and have a great time again.
I don't know, man. I enjoy wearing the mask at some point. I have definitely not had to do as much beard maintenance through the masks. And I do have to say there's been an added benefit. Cold weather in a mask is incredible. Like my nose does not get cold anymore. So I'm out there photographing like a Nevada football game and I am comfortable. Like the mask may work itself into my future wardrobe rotations, COVID or not. Like
same.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. I mean, I'm already doing enough to cover up my face, but like, let's throw another couple layers on there. So, but yeah, I appreciate it. It's great to talk to you and I hope to see you soon in person and at an Aces game.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, David Calvert, team photographer for the Reno Aces. My name is Chris Payne, thanking you for watching the origins of Aces baseball in the biggest little city.